Today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and it's all about time management, how to turn your minutes into momentum. So I've not always been a time management guru, but I would say I'm like the ultimate time hacker at this point in my life, and it's a learned behavior. So rest assured, if you suck at time management or you feel like you're all over the place or cannot seem to figure out what calendar is going to work for you or what time management tool will work for you, it is something that can be learned. So I'm going to walk you through, just some steps today, some tips, some tricks, some things that I have found over the years that have really helped me become a time management guru. And I train and I coach on this all the time because what I have found is even when I take people into my network marketing teams or into my business coaching, one of the biggest struggles that most people have is managing their time correctly and appropriately. And I want you to be the CEO of not only your life, but your business and everything in between. And that really is going to start with being able to manage your time efficiently. I was losing track of things and projects and pieces of projects and feeling distracted and always behind on things and scattered with notebooks over here and calendars over here. And which calendar should I use this year? And then I started writing in it and found that that wasn't working for me. So then I would just kind of get really lax on it. And then as I got older, I started to figure out I was like missing appointments and stuff. And I was like, this isn't going to work. And I actually refused for the longest time to go digital. You could probably archive some trainings for me that I talk about paper calendars, how I was never going to switch off of those paper calendars, because at that time in my life, it was more about like physically writing the things down so I could remember them. And not necessarily keeping them in a digital calendar. And in this day and age, everything is digital, and it is much easier when you're on the go to have your phone house most of that data so that you can stay on track with whatever you're doing wherever you go, and you don't have to carry those heavy calendars and notebooks necessarily around with you. So I'm going to give you some really great tips today. So stick around and let's go through some things that might help you become your own time management guru. So a little backstory. When the point of which I realized I really had to get it together. And so I was probably in the middle of like, Jess, you need to get it together. You are doing way too much and you need a system that's going to work. And so I'll back up just a few years. I was running a multi-million-dollar network marketing team. I was leading it. I was coaching it. I was training it. I was recruiting to it. I was in the trenches, right? The day-to-day, coaching my other leaders, pouring into the team, lots of team meetings. Alongside of that, if that wasn't enough, I was also raising my 12-year-old son. He was 12 at the time. He's 16 now. So this was about 3-4 years ago, 12, 13. And I decided at a very young age for him that I wanted to be a big part of his life. I didn't want to put him in daycare or childcare. I would always work from home. And we decided to put him in a charter school that was uniformed and had a little more rules than public schools. And it was just a choice that made sense for us. I have a very smart little boy, and I wanted to make sure he was challenged. But with that decision came some challenges. They didn't have busing, so I was going to have to drive him to and from school for 8 grades, right? All the way, the school went all the way through 8th grade. And so on top of my daily routine and taking care of my kiddo, being a wife and taking care of the house, cooking dinners, driving to school back and forth, I also had my full-time network marketing team, and I also had a startup tech company we were building from the ground up. I was learning how to build. I was learning how to develop. I was learning how to talk to developers. I was putting in a ton of hours with that company. I also we decided at a certain point we needed to go out and raise funds from venture capital. And so that's a big skill set that is a learned skill set. That's not really something you just kind of like overnight, hey, I have got the skill set to go build pitch decks and start pitching to VCs. So I learned how to do that and started pitching all of these venture capitalists. And so that was a big chunk of my time too. And if that was not enough, I also owned a live event company, an in-person event company in the personal development space of network marketing. We ended up having 2 major events within 6 months of launching this business. So one in Upper Michigan, about 4 or 5 hours from my home, and another, the second one in Naples, Florida. I mean, these were decent sized events. We had main stage speakers such as Rachel Hollis and Hal Elrod, the author of The Miracle Morning, and 2 amazing MCs in the network marketing training space, Rob Sperry and Fraser Brooks, and so many other speakers that we had over the course of, these were like 3-day, 4-day events. I'm trying to remember, this was about 4 years ago. So about 3 or 4 day events, and lots of speakers and lots of attendees and lots of accommodations and VIP details and like all of the things that came along with running a pretty large event company. And the only reason that's not in existence anymore is because, well, the pandemic hit and kind of slowed down the opportunity for a startup event company to keep going in those circumstances. But I'm telling you all of this because all of those things were happening simultaneously in my life. This wasn't something that like 1 year I was working on this, and then in another couple of years I was working on this, and then a couple of years later I started working on this. They were all happening simultaneously. And I look back at that now and go, you were a little bit crazy, but it forced me to become a master of my time, a master of all of the minutes of every single day of my life. If I wanted to be able to fit all of that in, lots of big goals, lots of big aspirations, and a lot of people counting on me, right? So I had to have my time hacked. And I sure did come up with the most, I don't want to say creative. It's not real creative, but it's just a plan that worked for me. And I want to turn around and help other people figure out how they can master their minutes too. So let me give you my top 5 time hacking tricks that you can get started on. So first and foremost, we have to know what we're doing on a daily basis for us to actually make any changes to that. So what I have my coaching clients do, or anybody that comes to me and says, hey, I need some help getting this time management thing figured out. I want you to take an average week of your life, not a week that you're gonna be on vacation, not a week that you have like all kinds of different stuff going on. That's not a normal 7 days of your life. So I know who's got an average life anymore. I don't know, but just, I want you to track 7 days of your life. I want you to get out a spreadsheet or a notebook. I want you to write down morning, like from the time you wake till like, lunchtime. I want you to write in there what time you're taking lunch. I want you to write out the afternoon hours all the way until you kind of like punch that clock at the end of the day and you're done. And then I want you to write out your evening hours. I want you to track every single minute of every single day for 7 days. Now, I want you to track this how you already live your life. This will do you no good if you go in and track those 7 days and change all of your habits in those 7 days, so that it looks like you're doing more than you normally do. Does that make sense? I want you to track the 7 days as if it is just like this past week that you went through, okay? And I do want you to track when you wake up every day. I want you to track when you go to bed every night. I want you to track when you Netflix. I shouldn't say Netflix and chill because that is not appropriate anymore now that I've learned. I want you to track all of it. I want you to know how you're spending all your minutes. I want you to track what you work on and which projects you get accomplished. I want it tracked minute by minute, hour by hour. I want you to really scour 7 days of your life. I really don't have to do much after that for people to understand there's a lot of wasted time in their schedule. So I just want you to track the 7 days. And when people say all the time, I just don't have time for that. Listen, I know what that feels like. I also know when that's making excuses because I've been there too. So I want you to track your time and then be honest with yourself about what extra time you may have on your plate, so that we can get organized, okay? Because that's like what we're trying to accomplish here. It's not, we're not trying to do anything but get you organized and get your time hacked. So let's do that first, okay? So that's my tip number 1. Tip number 2 is set timers when you feel like it's time to get on social media. If you're gonna get on social media and do homework, research, create your post, create your reel, create your TikTok. That's fine. I also want you to set timers doing it, because we can get distracted extremely easy when we think we're on there working. An hour goes by and we actually didn't even accomplish the task, or we did accomplish the task, but it took us 7 times as long as it should have, because we scrolled out, we were looking at other people's reels, and it wasn't, very specific time blocked for research. It was time blocked for creation, right? And so you're hearing me say some things like time blocked for, that's because I time block everything throughout my day so that I can get a lot in. Now, I'm going to pause for a second and say, if this is too intense for you, that's completely okay. We just have maybe a different set of goals and things we're trying to work on and what we're trying to fit in our day. So that has to be decided first, is that set of goals, where you're trying to go. I always say begin with the end in mind. When we're talking about time management, that also comes into play. Begin with the end in mind. What is the big goal? When are you trying to get there? How much time do we have to do it? And then we can back out all of the steps. So if you have a very long time to hit this goal and a very, like a very small goal, then maybe the time management does not need to be so intense. But if you're trying to hit some big things in a short amount of time, we're going to need to be intense. Okay. So I wanted to put that little disclaimer in there. All right. So number 3 is use 3 things. These are the 3 things that I highly recommend that you use: a notebook, a digital calendar, and a digital time management, task management, project management app. Okay. And let me go dig a little deeper on each one of those. So first of all, the notebook. You should always be carrying around a notebook with you to meetings, to virtual trainings, to places where you're going to need to brain dump some stuff. When I'm working, I always have a notebook next to me. When I am on an airplane, I always have a notebook next to me. And if I forget it, I always have the notes on my phone. So there is that. But I do still believe that there is power in writing things down. And always have a notebook to take physical notes when you're in a meeting. And here's why. I'm going to give you 2 little tips here on this. Number 1, when you're in a meeting, people do not like looking at somebody who's constantly on their phone like this. Okay. So even though you might think that taking notes on your phone is a good place to do that, no one wants to have a meeting with you when you're staring at your phone like this, because they don't know if you're actually taking notes or you're dinking around on social media or answering somebody's text. If you have a notebook out and you're writing in that notebook, the person that's sitting at the table with you or in that meeting with you knows that you're very focused on what they are saying and you're writing it down. Also, there's something different about typing out responses that have the time self-populate for you or things like that, and actually writing the notes down. And why I say you should take notes in every single meeting is because later, when you want to go back and recall what happened in that meeting, or somebody says something different, or you can't really remember what the project was or what it entailed, you always have those notes. Okay. So that's just kind of a side deal for that. But that notebook can be used later to put things in your to-do list, right? So then we can go in and create that to-do list and make sure that we get everything on all of the projects we need to do into what our digital app is going to be. Okay, so a notebook, number 1. Number 2 is a digital calendar, one that can be housed on your phone. Some people use their iCal if they have an iPhone. Some people use the Google Calendar. I don't really know any other ones besides those 2. I'm sure there's other ones out there. I highly recommend the Google Calendar only because it syncs with so many different things. And it doesn't matter if you're an iPhone user or an Android user, they all operate the same. And the Google Suite of Services just comes with so many other things and they all sync together. So I always try to push people towards the Google Calendar. Even if you have an iPhone that has an iCalendar on it, it just isn't the same. And I understand that that's calendar on your phone, but if you have a Gmail email account, you'll thank me later for having the Google Suite of Services. That Google Drive and Forms and everything that comes along with it is an organization king. Okay, so having your Google Calendar sync with everything else also makes it king. So having a digital calendar. Now, what do I put in my digital calendar? I don't put reminders in there. I don't put to-do lists in there. I don't put anything except for appointments, physical appointments that I have to do: phone calls, doctor's appointments, Zoom meetings, virtual meetings, trainings, anything that I have to be somewhere at a certain time for a specific thing that involves probably another person in that. Okay, so all appointments go in my digital calendar. I reserve my project management, my task management, and everything else for a digital tool that is specific to that. Okay, so I use Trello. There are plenty of other digital tools out there. Some I like, some I don't like, some like there's another one called ClickUp that's become pretty popular for a like a project management tool. I like it. I think it's great, but it doesn't operate the same on the phone as it does on the computer. And that goes the same for a couple of these other time management, task management, project management tools. What I have found is that Trello works identically on the phone as it does on the computer, and it does everything for the most part that I need for a very inexpensive price. And I can invite people to my boards and show them. It just operates very smoothly for me. And I've built a lot of templates in there and time management boards for myself and for the people that I coach. So I use a Trello board to track all of my projects and everything I need to get done in every month, in every week, and in every day. And it all stays stored in there, so I can always go back and look and see what I have coming up or what I've done in the past, or if things got done or if projects need to get completed. So my number 3 is the use 3 things: a notebook, a digital calendar, and a digital tool for time and task management. Now, in that time and task management, it runs my day. It runs my projects. It runs all of the things I need to get done in all of my businesses. And if I didn't run my day and my life by this, I would not be nearly as effective as I am. So I'm not saying that my tool would be perfect for you, but what I am saying is get a tool, create a system, and no system or project management tool out there is necessarily perfect for everyone. The only thing that's going to be perfect for you is what works for you. And I will say, some people are like, well, I just like a notebook. Great. I just like my Google Calendar. Great. It's not the same. You need to have some specific things for some specific reasons so that you manage your time and your projects appropriately. So I take and break down all of my tasks by month first. Overall, what do I want to get done and what are the major projects of the month? Then on the weeks, I break them down and talk about which things I'm going to get done in which weeks. And then when I get to that week, I usually plan on Sundays, my week ahead, and I make very specific to-do lists in there for each of the things that I need to get done for that week. And I have some base ones that stay in there, like creating my morning routine, which is my next tip for you on time management hacking. But I create everything in this Trello board, and every time I get I live my day by it, so it stays up on my computer, and every time I get something done, I check it off or I cross it out, and I keep on trucking. So number 4. Okay, so this was the 5 time hacking tricks that you can get started on are: track your next 7 days, set timers on social media, use 3 things: the notebook, the digital calendar, and the digital app for project management. Number 4 is creating a morning routine. And number 5 is habit stacking. So number 4, creating a morning routine. I have my own morning routine. It's called the GREAT system. It's gratitude, it's reading, it's exercising, it's accountability, and it's training and time management. Okay, so that's my morning routine. I highly recommend that you create one that works for you, because if you start off your morning the right way, like making your bed and getting in some exercise, doing some personal development, checking in with your time management and your schedule and all, if you have a system that works for you first thing in the morning, the rest of your day will go way more organized. So that's my number 4 tip. My number 5 is habit stack. My definition of habit stack might be a little bit different than other people's. And it is, I like to stack things together. Now, habit stacking, when they talk about it in the form of, I think there's a few books out there on it, they're talking about stacking one habit and then another one and then another one, so that you then create this whole long, thing of habits that work for you. My habit stacking looks like this. I stack things together that work together. I want to get in exercise every day and I want to get personal development every day. So I make sure that I put my AirPods in and I listen to a podcast or a book while I'm walking or while I'm drying my hair. I will stack other things together that just make sense to stack them together so that I can get 2 things or 3 things done at one time. I can listen to a podcast or a book instead of the radio if I'm driving to an appointment. So figure out those things that you can stack together so that you get more done throughout your day. So look at your to-do list and say, I could do this and this at the same time, and boom, I've gotten 2 things done. So I pair things together throughout my entire day to get more done. And move faster. Like if I'm getting ready to travel, I have all my travel schedule situated, but I also have all of the things that are going to happen during that travel that I'm stacking together so that I don't miss out on time that I can be working. If you're the type of person that gets on an airplane and takes a nap because you need it, great, fine. That's not me. Very rarely. If you're a person who gets on an airplane and watches a movie, downtime, sometimes. If you got big goals and stuff to do, I used to always kind of giggle. We would go on all of these trips for our network marketing business, and we got to travel the world. They sent us on all kinds of amazing vacations, and I'd be the one coming back from vacation, and I could see other attendees on the same airplane as me, and I'd be looking around, and I was the only one working. I was like, everybody's sleeping. They get too tired on the trip. What if they have big goals? I'd be like, back to recruiting, back to team building, back to team plans, and back to working for that whole time I was on the plane. So habit stacking to me is creating more time in my schedule by stacking a few things together. Okay, and last on this is learn the 4 quadrants. This is just a lesson. The 4 quadrants by Stephen Covey. He has the urgent, not urgent, important, not important quadrant. And I could probably squeeze this in the email. I post it quite often. I talk about it quite often. I was taught this not too long ago by a COO of a company that I was working with. And he asked me if I knew what the 4 quadrants were. And I was like, no. He's like, we need to help you with that, because I was running, this is when I was operating 2 big companies, an event company, a tech company, and then thirdly, my network marketing business. And I was running around with my hair on fire. So if you feel like you're running around with your hair on fire, constantly putting out fires, you need the 4 quadrants. So if you ever get to a point in your business career, your life career, really, and you're like, I feel like I'm constantly running around with my hair on fire, you need to go back to the 4 quadrants. So every decision you make can go through these 4 quadrants. And so it goes on top, it goes urgent, not urgent. And then on the side, it goes important, not important. So your first quadrant is going to be urgent and important. Those are tasks that come across your desk or things that people ask you to do. They are urgent and they are important. They need to get done now. So do it, focus on this task first and get it done. Now, then there are tasks that are important, but not urgent. So those are the things you're going to schedule or put on your to-do list in your digital project management tool. Decide a time and get it done when it comes to the time that you said you would get it done. So those are not urgent, but they're important things that come across your life, your desk, phone calls, things that people need from you. And then there is not important, but urgent, right? Okay, so they're not that important to you. The importance of them getting done is urgent though. So those are things you want to delegate. Find someone to do it or push it back so that it can get done later. But you should, those are the things that you should be delegating to somebody else. And then the last but not least is not important, not urgent. Eliminate it. These are your distractions. These are your do not do list. And this is the place where people get caught up the most. Not important, not urgent. They're drama creators. They're drama starters. They're things that get you off track and off schedule, and they suck up your time. So that 4 quadrant system, super important, will be so helpful for you as you go on your entrepreneurial journey. I wish somebody would have taught me that sooner. Okay, I have 3 books, 3 badass books I want to recommend on this topic. They were game-changing for me, and I think they'll be game-changing for you. Number 1 is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I read this years ago, and it really helped me on that journey going through those few companies I was working with all at one time. I start my morning off in a very specific way. He gives you his savers Miracle Morning system, and you can use that or you can create your own. It's a quick, easy read. I actually had him speak at my second event in Naples. What a wonderful human with an crazy, incredible story. He's got a few books out, and the Miracle Equation is one of his too. But the Miracle Morning will help you with the time management. If you really like him as an author, you'll love his next book, which is the Miracle Equation. Number 2 is Atomic Habits. OMG, this book will change your life about habits and how you create space in your day for more time by having the very best set of habits possible. He has so many golden nuggets in this book. You will not regret getting that book. And the number 3 is the 12-week year. I think a lot of times we're given a task, or we're given a project, or we're given something to do, or we have this goal and we get this time frame. And you could give one person a year to do it, and you could give one person a 12-week time frame to do it. And the person in the 12-week time frame is probably going to do it better because they had a shorter time frame to do it and they just got to work. Whereas the person who took a year took a whole year to do it. So they spread these projects out, and then when they would jump back in to do it, they would lose focus on what they were supposed to be focused on in the first place, or the task at hand, they had to like relearn it. As a perfect example, I was working with my friend Sydney last week, a couple weeks ago, on some tech for her business. So we were in building some things, and I left her with a to-do list, and she had to go and get a couple of things so that we could finish the project. Well, some time lapse between that because both of our schedules, and when we got back on a couple of weeks later to finish it out, we almost had to like redo half of it and rework half of it because we forgot we had already accomplished half of it, or where we left off on this place, and this place. So that's what I mean by when you give someone a year to do something, they will go and take breaks in between, and they aren't as effective when they come back to the table as if somebody spends only 12 weeks on the same project. They get it done back to back to back because they have a much shorter time frame, and it's way more effective. So I love that book. It will teach you how to get things done in 12-week increments, projects, big things, big goals, and setting it up in that system so that it works much better for you. We can fit a whole lot in with our time if we just do it correctly. Okay, so understand that time is your most valuable commodity, you guys. We can make all the money in the world, but if we don't have our time management skills figured out, we, number one, are going to waste a lot of it, which could be then free time for our flexible freedom lifestyle. And we tend to get more frustrated and irritated when we are spending time, useless time, doing things that are unimportant and costing us. So then they end up costing us more money. So I want you to really take a step back and think about your time and how you want it to be spent. I want you to take a look at where you want to be 5 years from now and make a decision about, can I go through the very focused, very organized time management system and plan out my days and be super disciplined and super consistent with all of it for the next 5 years, so that in 5 years, I can live a lifestyle that most people will never get to live because they will be too lazy or too unorganized or too inconsistent or not disciplined enough in those 5 years like I was. So I want you to really understand that time is your most valuable commodity. So you should treat it that way. I'm going to leave you with this. 6 tips, 6 last minute tips to becoming a time hacker as well. Because I'm one, you could be one, we could be one together, and we could do big things. So number 1, begin with the end in mind. Always have a plan and what you're headed for. If you can back out from if you can decide on the very end and then back out from that, you will be so much more effective because the goal will always be in your mind when you're creating the to-do list, and you're spending your time way more wisely knowing what the target is at the end. So begin with the end in mind. Number 2, decide. Make a decision about what you want and by when you want it. Makes it much easier to plan out all of the tasks at hand when you know what that is and you're very clear on it. Number 3, set clear goals and deadlines. Want to make sure that you have the goals that meet up with the amount of time that you're actually going to spend on the project. There's no sense in putting a goal out there and then not having the appropriate time set aside to actually work on that. So decide what that's going to be and how it's going to look and how much time you can dedicate to it. Number 3, set clear goals and deadlines. Sorry, that was the last one. So it's number 1, begin with the end in mind. Number 2, decide, make a decision about where you want to go, where you want to get to, and by when. Number 3, set clear goals and deadlines. Number 4, be disciplined. You can be motivated and not disciplined, and that is not going to help you. So you're motivated on one day, and then the next day you get up and you are not disciplined to go do what you're supposed to be doing. Discipline is going to win out every single time. It means we get up on the hard days and do it even if we don't want to. Motivation is great, but you ain't gonna be motivated every day that you wake up. Number 5, be consistent. No one follows an inconsistent person, business owner, friend, family member. Be consistent. And number 6, reward yourself. When you complete all of these things and you check off your list for the day, make sure you go pat yourself on the back. Make sure you give yourself a reward for that. So let me review those one more time. Understand that time is your most valuable commodity. So 6 things that you could do to become the time hacker that you really want to be is begin with the end in mind. Decide, make a decision about it, set very clear goals and deadlines, be disciplined, be consistent, and reward yourself. I hope that you've learned something incredible today. If you're looking for any of this in a follow-up or recap, check your email box. If you're not getting our emails, make sure you check that spam folder. They could be going there. And if you're not on our email list, please let us know so that we can get you added, because we send out lots of amazing things. And if you want to continue on this journey of the next 12 weeks, next week, we're going to cover just another amazing topic for entrepreneurs. And I hope to see you soon.